Tonight's message is not a sighting. Not exactly. It is a theory. Humans make theories whenever uncertainty begins pressing too hard against the edges of their comfort. Most are flimsy things, emotional scaffolding disguised as logic. This one is more irritating than most, because it works. The sender wanted my thoughts. Nothing more dramatic than that. A short message, calmly written. A simple question disguised as speculation. Whether the beings you call the Greys are extraterrestrials or descendants, that is the part worth opening. The question is simple enough. What if they are you? Not you as you are now, and not in any way you would find flattering. But you after centuries of collapse, confinement, correction, survival, and adaptation severe enough to reshape the species into something recognizably human only from a distance. That idea has existed in your culture for a long time, usually at the edges, usually treated as one theory among many. I suspect people keep returning to it because it removes distance. Extraterrestrials are comforting, in their way. Foreign things from far away preserve a useful illusion. They remain separate, external, unrelated. Future descendants are less generous. They suggest the thing at the bedside may not be foreign at all, only delayed. A species surviving environmental ruin, dependence on enclosed systems, reproductive decline, and generations of artificial intervention would not necessarily remain shaped the way you are now. Bodies could diminish, musculature could fade, skulls could enlarge through adaptation or engineering, eyes could alter under dim or synthetic environments, emotional signaling could narrow, social behavior could become more functional than expressive. To you, that would look alien. That does not mean it came from another world, only that humans are sentimental about their present form. The stronger part of the theory, however, is not appearance. It is motive. If the Greys are some future branch of humanity, damaged or altered by their own history, then the fixation on genetics begins to make a cold kind of sense. Not diplomacy, not conquest, not curiosity in the way explorers possess it. Maintenance. A failing line reaching backward toward an earlier version of itself because it no longer trusts its own continuity. That explains many encounter reports better than the old fantasy of interstellar tourists. Humans like to imagine visitors who came to observe. But these stories do not often describe wonder. They describe procedure, collection, examination, reproductive emphasis, embryonic fixation, hybrid claims, clinical repetition, minimal emotional response. Explorers ask questions. These accounts often describe technicians. Then there is the other problem. Missing time, fragmented recall, paralysis, entries without openings, craft that seem to appear and disappear without respecting ordinary movement. Humans call this advanced travel. Perhaps. But it may be more accurate to say that some encounters feel less like movement through distance than disruption in sequence. You are attached to geography. You assume movement must mean location. Sometimes it means order. If such beings are moving not only through space but through chronology, then many of the stranger details become less theatrical and more functional. The encounter does not simply happen somewhere. It happens out of place. And that is one reason the theory persists, because it explains too much. Before I continue, let me be precise. Do not mistake explanation for defense. I am not asking you to reinterpret fear as gratitude. I am not suggesting that violation becomes acceptable because its motive may be more complex than cruelty. And I am not telling you this theory is true. I am only suggesting that it is not as easy to dismiss as people pretend, and that there is another way to think about it. Humans tend to assume the motive ends where their fear begins. You imagine a future descendant returning to preserve itself. That may be correct, but I have sometimes wondered whether the theory is too narrow. What if they are not only trying to save themselves? What if they are trying to save you? No, not in the sentimental way humans prefer. Not with softness, not with permission, not with tenderness, not with the visible language of care your species finds reassuring. I mean something colder. If a future branch of humanity survived, but survived incorrectly, then it may not merely be suffering from decline. It may be the endpoint of a damaged timeline, a continuation shaped by catastrophe, compromise, narrowing environments, engineered corrections, and survival severe enough to preserve the body while reducing something else. Not extinction, something worse. Continuation in broken form. If that is true, then returning to the past may not only be about repairing themselves after the fact, it may be about preserving an earlier humanity before it hardens into what they became. Not just salvage, intervention. That changes the meaning of almost everything. The procedures are no longer only extraction. They may also be preservation. The hybrids are no longer only replacements. They may be corrections. The encounters are no longer simply acts of use. They may be attempts, cold and ethically grotesque attempts, to prevent the future that produced them. I am not calling this merciful. I am calling it possible. A thing may attempt to preserve a species while being far too altered to remember how preservation feels from the receiving side. That matters. Humans read emotional coldness as proof of malice. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is what remains when survival outlives tenderness. There is another mistake humans make here. You assume these explanations must compete. Future descendant, interstellar traveler, extraterrestrial, post-human. You arrange them into separate boxes because you are more comfortable with clean shelves than untidy truths. A civilization may originate from humanity and still become, by any practical definition, alien. A species may survive collapse, leave its world behind, alter itself beyond easy kinship, and learn to move through both time and distance. By the time you meet such a thing, arguing whether it is from your future or from elsewhere may be little more than a taxonomic distraction. Perhaps they are future humans. Perhaps they are interstellar travelers. Perhaps both theories contain enough truth to embarrass the people insisting on only one. The Greys may be descendants rather than visitors. They may be preserving their failing line through the past. Or they may be trying to preserve an earlier humanity, because it is the last version of the species, not yet broken into whatever they became. Or both. If that is true, it would not necessarily look noble. By the time a species learns to survive everything, it may also lose the gentler parts of why survival once mattered.